A warm welcome back to Wellness Talk. I am George Batista, as always, your host and your wellness advocate. Of course, Wellness Talk is a show that goes over the latest in health, healing, and nutrition and fitness. We give you all the tools that you can put in your health toolbox every single week. Hope you guys are doing great. Glad you guys are with me, as always. Today, we got good information. Brand new information on omega 3s. So, we're going to be talking about primarily today on omega 3s and some new information and why it's beneficial for you. So, first, we have from the American Academy of Neurology omega 3 fatty acids linked to slower decline in ALS. Now, ALS, we know, is one of those conditions where it's it's a rare condition, but when obviously when someone has it, it can be, it can eventually be fatal, and it's a very debilitating condition. It's called a amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. But this was a study where they show that consuming omega 3s may have a slower physical decline. People who have ALS may have a slower physical decline from the disease and may have slightly extended survival. So this is good news. Again, this is just a preliminary study, so they're not saying that it's the actual cause of the reason why people are maybe living longer and have a lower incidence of death, but it's promising information. So we'll go over that. Then from there, from Wellness Resources, we're going to talk about omega 3 DHA and phosphatidylserine. Two are better than one. Why this is a powerful team. Okay, so again, we've talked about omega 3s here. We've talked about phosphatidylserine here, which is a phospholipid, which is very important for the brain, but we haven't talked about them together. This is a great article, and it talks about why they work together. They have this synergistic relationship, and why you guys should be consuming them together. And it's a lot of great benefits on it. So we'll discuss that. And then we'll also kind of just do an overall discussion on the different forms of omega 3s, where you guys can get your omega 3s and why it's important to have it. And again, just the different forms of it, because we do get a lot of questions on which form is better, which is krill oil, fish oil, or flaxseed oil, that type of thing. So I'll kind of just do a brief overview of them, why they're important, and what's best for you. So that's great article on that. And make sure, again, these articles are on georgebatista.com, so make sure you check them out, because, again, I always go over the highlights, but it's always best for you guys to really go through them. Then from there, I'm going to play a clip, and this is from a gentleman named Ed Dowd. Now, those of you may not know who Ed Dowd is. He is a former equity portfolio manager for BlackRock, and he's also a hedge fund. He's considered a hedge fund guru. And it's a little bit of a disturbing clip, but you guys need to know this information. You need to see this. This is new information. He was on a show called Dr. Drew. Some of you may know the show, may not know the show, but this guy's a stat guy. He's a statistician. And what he did is he had studied initially through COVID excess mortality. And he found a trend in excess mortality that was very, very disturbing. And he had presented some of his data and that type of thing. He was on the show a few times before on the Dr. Drew show, and he talked about it. But he found something even more disturbing. He looked at UK pension disability data, and he found a disturbing trend within the last year or two. And he's going to present the numbers. And I want you guys to see this, because this is very, very interesting, but it's also very, very scary. Now, he also looked at the USA data, disability data, but it's the data in the USA is different. Now, he did see the same type of trend, but it's different because the information is different. They're still working on trying to get actual disability data from the United States, but he was able to get disability data from the UK pension fund, and that's it. That they call it that in the UK, but it's actually disability data, and it's crazy what he found. These numbers are absolutely disturbing, because what it is the amount of disability claims that were paid out in the UK, um, towards the end of COVID and towards the end of the pandemic. And there is some really scary trends that are going on there, and no one's talking about it. He presents the information here, and I want you guys to see it. It's about a 4-minute clip, but I think you guys are really going to be, you know, really going to be interested in this information, because what he's asking is, why is nobody talking about this? And he's not a doctor. He's just looking at the data. But what he wants to do is, he wants doctors and he wants scientists to look at this data and to find out why there is such a spike in disability. And when we're talking about spike, we're talking about ridiculously off the chart spikes. And if you guys go to georgebatista.com, you'll see the article is actually called a black swan event. And the reason why it's called that is because it's such a rare event. I mean, he literally compares it to like getting swallowed up in a black hole. So, this is disability claims. These are claims of a medical issue. So we're going to take a look at that, and I think you guys are really going to be blown away by this information, because I know I was when I saw this. So again, this is from Ed Dowd. He was on the Dr. Drew Show. I'm going to play that, and we'll discuss a little bit about that, and I'll pose the question to you guys: why do you think this is happening? I have my thoughts on it, but I want to pose the question to you: why do you think this is happening? And it's a scary trend. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just some, really, really interesting stuff to go over, and stuff that nobody's talking about, because obviously this is stuff you're not going to hear in the mainstream media. And a lot of times the stuff we talk about on this show is stuff you don't hear on the mainstream media. So that's why you guys tune in here, right? Anyway, so make sure you guys go to georgebatista.com, check out all the articles that we go over. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, of course. And for those of you who want to support the show, please feel free to do so. There's a support the show button at the front. And whatever you can do to support the show is always, always appreciated. Goes back into the show to make the show better. Everything we can do to make the show better to bring you guys this awesome content that we bring you every single week. All right, guys. So let's get started with our articles for the week. First article is out of the American Academy of Neurology, and this is omega-3 fatty acids link to slower decline in ALS. So again, ALS, we know, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or what is also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. So they did some preliminary studies on this. Now, ALS, again, is a rare progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. People with ALS lose the ability to initiate and control muscle movement, which often leads to total paralysis and death. Now, the average lifespan after diagnosis is 2 to 5 years, but they wanted to see if omega-3 fatty acids had any effect on people's lifespan and people's ability to move, as far as movement and motor function and these types of things. So let's get into the study. The study involved 449 people who had ALS with an average age of 58, who were followed over 18 months. Over the total participants, 126, or 28%, died by the end of the study. Researchers looked at levels of omega-3 fatty acids in participants' blood, and they divided them into 4 groups based on the highest from the lowest to the highest amounts. Okay. Now, the participants took tests to assess their disease progression and severity of symptoms. So they measured their physical function. They measured, everything, including swallowing, speaking, chewing, and their ability to use their muscles with their hands, their legs, their torso, even their respiratory function. Okay. And then what they did was they assessed those functions, and then they scored them from a category from 0, meaning no ability, to 4, meaning they had normal ability. Okay. So that's kind of how they assessed them. Okay. So their total scores range from 0 to 48, with higher scores indicating better function and less severe symptoms. So this is some of the information that the researchers found. Now, the researchers found that omega-3 fatty acids, called alpha linoleic acid actually had the most benefit. So you get your ALA in your flax seeds, your walnuts, your chia seeds, your hemp seeds, those types of things. Okay, that's what's called alpha linoleic acid. Okay, you also find it in common vegetable oils as well. Now, they found that the people with the highest levels of ALA had an average score of 38.3 at the start of the study, with the people with the lowest amounts had an average score of 37.6. Now, after adjusting for age and sex and ethnicity, they found that people with the highest amounts of ALA had a 50% lower risk of death during the study compared to people with the lowest amounts of ALA. So, literally, 50% of lower risk of death compared to the other group that had the lowest. That's not a small percentage. That's a huge percentage, literally by half. It cut the death by half. Okay. And they say that higher levels of specific omega 3 fatty acids called EPA acid that is found in fatty fish and fish oil supplements was also associated with a lower risk of death during the study. So this is interesting. So they are saying that they don't see it as a causation. They see there's maybe correlation, and we know that correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but this is very promising. Okay, why? And you would think about it because omega 3s are an essential fatty acid, right? We all need them, right? If you have lower amounts of omega 3s, that has been in thousands of studies, we've seen it, that has been associated with all different types of issues, right? All different types of medical issues when you've had little to no omega 3 in your diet. The more omega 3 in your diet you have, that's going to be better outcomes. Why? Because omega 3, you have to remember that omega 3, specifically EPA and DHA, EPA is known, DHA is known to cross the blood-brain barrier, okay, help you protect against cognitive decline. Studies have shown that. EPA has an anti-inflammatory effect, okay? So when you have these in good amounts in your blood, especially in your tissues, it's been shown in many, many studies to be beneficial. So hopefully we'll see more studies on ALS, because again, it's unfortunately it's a disease that does not have a good outcome, especially after diagnosis. That's been shown here. But if you can take fish oil as part of your comprehensive health toolbox, if you have ALA, right? If you have ALS anyway, could it be a good thing? So maybe what we can do, if someone who has ALS or has been diagnosed with ALS, look at it comprehensively. Fish oil could just be one of the things you can use. Maybe there's a whole bunch of range of other things that you can use also on top of that in your health package, in your health toolbox, that can help you maybe live longer. We don't know, right? But this is a promising study. So just something to look at, just something to follow. Again, this is out of the American Academy of Neurology, and hopefully we'll see more studies on this. All right, next, omega-3 DHA and phosphatidylserine. 2 are better than 1. This is from Wellness Resources. So let's take a look at both. Okay, so obviously the 2 are very good for brain function, structure, and health. They are essential components of cell membranes and support electrical function, mitochondrial activity, and receptor site activity in the brain. Now, there was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. Men ages 30 through 60 years were measured for stress levels. Okay, and they talked about stress in these studies. The men were either given a placebo or a combination of phosphatidylserine and omega-3 oils for a period of 12 weeks. Results were analyzed and were based on responses with the amount of stress and HPA axis function. Now we know HPA axis is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which I've addressed on this show before. So they measured the stress levels, which the HPA axis, and the best outcomes for brain support were found in men who had the greatest level who had the greatest level of chronic high stress. The combination of omega-3 and phosphatidylserine helped bring homeostasis back to the HPA axis. So we know, again, the HPA axis is the hypothalamic pituitary axis. So basically, it's the communication between the hypothalamic part of your brain to the pituitary part of your brain to the adrenals, which eventually secretes all your stress hormones. Okay. So when this axis is not functioning properly, or there's just, really, really high stress, you can kind of get stuck in this high stress, especially when the stress is chronic, right? You have this really high chronic stress. This is when you're secreting these high hormones, these stress hormones, right? The adrenalines, all these types of things. You're secreting what's called catecholamines, which obviously make the heart pump faster, which, make all the, which makes, basically makes all these cytokines in your body, which actually, you end up with this fight or flight system. And you want to try to bring the body back into this, what's called the homeostasis, which is a balance. Okay. So they found in this study that the combination of omega-3 and phosphatidylserine help men come back down into homeostasis. These are men that were very, very stressed out. Very important. Okay. Now, why is phosphatidylserine so important? Because it's the primary, most abundant, negatively charged phospholipid in the inner cell membranes. Okay. Now, each phospholipid consists of two fatty acids, a phosphate group, and a glycerol molecule, which is basically kind of mirrors what is inside the cell membrane. Okay. Now, phosphatidylserine is vital to the function and the release of neurotransmitter acetylcholine, dopamine, and noradrenaline. Phosphatidylserine activates protein kinases, which are signals used for memory and as well as activity in the brain. It also helps for nerve stability, function, memory, healthy aging, and daily function in the hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain. We've talked about that before. And, phosphatidylserine tends to be easily absorbed across the blood-brain barrier. But fish oil, omega-3s specifically, especially DHA, is a part of that. We're going to talk about that in a second, okay? Then we have, of course, omega-3, DHA. It's essential for the white and gray matter structure and volume of the brain. High amounts of DHA are critical for executive functions and especially needed for the temporal, which is the language part of the brain, which is, again, accounts for visual memory, emotion, and association. Now, omega-3 also helps the function of the brain, what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, okay, which is needed. Now, a BDNF is the part of your brain that is responsible for the repair of your brain, okay? So BDNF is extremely important in the brain. It helps repair, it helps the detoxification of the brain, that type of thing. So now, why is DHA and phosphatidylserine so important to work together? Because high levels of DHA, it helps phosphatidylserine build up and expand in the cell membranes in the brain. This is what's critical. Okay, this is one of the reasons why they work together. Okay, so the DHA is needed for the phosphatidylserine not only to absorb but to expand. Okay, so we need adequate amounts of DHA in the brain in order for it to do its best job in the brain to begin with. That's number one. Also, dietary DHA and phosphatidylserine intake supports healthy mood, focus, cognitive skills, memory, and stress. This makes them the perfect powerhouse. Okay. They also help with the brain electrical pathways and communication system. They make sure that they optimally run, right? And just like the highway systems and roads need to be in good shape for traffic to run smoothly, DHA and phosphatidylserine, they actually help those roads work properly in the brain, and they help to manage the traffic coming to and from the blood-brain barrier. This is why it's extremely important to make sure that you have enough of these components in your brain. Now, where can we get them? Okay, so we got, again, DHA. You can obviously get a fish oil supplement. You can also get your DHA from salmon, tuna, herring, mackerel, okay, the cold water fishes. algae, eggs, grass-fed free range chickens. Okay, they provide small quantities of DHA and EPA, but you can get them from there. Okay, now another thing that DHA is very, very good is that it builds up, especially in the retina of the brain. Now, you have to understand with fish oils, especially with the omega 3s, okay? Two of the fattiest places in your body are your brain and your liver. Well, those are the two parts of your body that also love omega 3s, okay? They store omega 3s, they love omega 3s. And, so it's very, very important. Now, omega 3s do accumulate in all different areas of your body, including the heart, they're part of your immune system, the lungs, all these types of things. So they do accumulate in all the areas, but your brain and your liver probably take it up the most. Okay, so you do want to build up your omega 3s over time, because omega 3s, when you start taking them, they don't have the effect right away. They do build up over time. So this is one of the things if you're trying to take in omega 3s for the beneficial effect that they have, you have to understand that it's a buildup process. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, where can we get phosphatidylserine? Phosphatidylserine is found mostly in meat and fish. Very small amounts are found in white beans and soy lecithin. You can find also chicken hearts contain actually 440 milligrams per 100 grams. I don't know if I want to be eating that, but chicken leg and skin and without bone, 134 milligrams per 100 grams. Atlantic cod, 28 milligrams per 100 grams. You can also supplement with phosphatidylserine as well. Okay. But keep in mind that the more stress demands you have in your body, the more phosphatidylserine and DHA that you need. So at the end of the day, DHA and phosphatidylserine, very, very important. They work very well together. They work synergistically together. If you want to take a look at where you can get them as far as a supplement form, check out Wellness Resources. Of course, one of the places that I get my supplements is Wellness Resources. Check out, they have phosphatidylserine supplements. They have DHA and EPA supplements. Very, very good, very high quality. So make sure you check them out. But of course, if you want to make sure you eat, eat those foods that we talked about, you can get them, or you can do a combination. If you are not eating fish every week, or if you're not eating fish at all, or if you don't like fish, I would suggest taking a fish oil supplement. Now, one of the things about fish oil supplements, they tend to be huge depending on where you get them. Okay. So, there are places you can get them where a small capsule, but again, you have to make sure you're getting them from a reputable place. So let's talk a little bit about omega-3 supplements and what are the different supplements and what you should be looking for. Okay, so we'll run through these really, really quick. The first one is fish oil. That is the most common omega-3 supplements. Okay, this is where you get them from you get fish oils from fatty fish or your fish oil capsules. Okay, DHA and EPA. Okay, you want to get fish oil. If you're getting fish oil, I would suggest the triglyceride form of fish oil. So when you take a look at the fish oil, look at the back and do some research on it and make sure that it says that it's in the triglyceride form. You don't want to get it in the ethyl ester form, which a lot of fish oils, a good majority of the low quality fish oils out there are in the on the ester form or the ethyl ester form. And part of the issue is that it's an absorption issue, part of it. Okay, so I would suggest if you are taking fish oil that you take it with a good amount of fat. And that's part of the issue with the ethyl ester form as well, is that it doesn't absorb well at all if you are not taking it with fat. So that's one of the reasons why you can actually take a fish oil in triglyceride form and it'll actually absorb much better than the ethyl ester form. Now, the ethyl ester form is not going to necessarily hurt you unless you're taking it in extremely high amounts. But if you want to get the best bang for your buck, take the triglyceride form of fish oil. That is the form that is going to absorb the best. And it's going to be the most effective and it's going to be the best, best bang for your buck. So that's fish oil. I would suggest minimum 1,000 milligrams of overall fish oil. And most places come with 1,000 milligrams, just as the lowest intakes. So I would definitely suggest that. Number two, we have cod liver oil. Now, a lot of people heard that from when they were probably a kid, right? Their mom probably gave them cod liver oil, but it contains concentrated doses of omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, but it's also rich in vitamin A and D. Okay. It's very good for you. You can definitely find it in a liquid form. You can also find it, in capsule form as well. But the thing about cod liver oil you have to make sure of is once that you open it, it can eventually go bad if you don't take it in, if you leave it for too long. Okay. And that's the one thing about fish oils in liquid form, they can go bad very quickly. So my suggestion would be to take them as directed, and don't leave them for long periods of time because they can go bad. It can get rancid. Okay. The third is krill oil. Now, krill oil is produced from Atlantic krill, a small shrimp-like crustacean which is found in the southern oceans. Okay. Now, krill oil tends to be very, very well absorbed as well. It's one of the other popular forms of omega-3s. It also contains what's called astaxanthin, which is a powerful carotenoid that can help free radical damage and promote better health. The thing with krill oil, very, very well absorbed. It tends to be more expensive. Okay, so you might be paying a little bit more to get krill oil. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's all up to your budget. Obviously, if you can afford to get krill oil, definitely get it, because there are major benefits to it. And it's on par to me with fish oil. It might be a little bit even better than fish oil. Very, very well absorbed. But again, it tends to be more expensive. And number four would be flaxseed oil. Now, flaxseed oil is also a good alternative if you don't want fish oil. And what you could do with flaxseed oil, it comes in a couple of ways. It comes in a soft gel, or you can get it in a powder form. Now, in the powder form, you have the ground flaxseed and you have the regular flaxseed. I would suggest a regular flaxseed because for some people it's hard to digest, especially in seed form, if people are dealing with diverticulitis, diverticulosis, those types of things. But the ground flaxseed, it's a very fine ground powder that's much better absorbed. Now, flaxseed is loaded with what's called ALA, alpha linoleic acid. So I would definitely check that out. You can put it in your cereals, you can put it in your oatmeals, you can put it in your smoothie, and it basically absorbs very, very well. So those are the basic fish oils and or omega-3s that I would suggest. And those are the most common ones and the ones we get a lot of questions out. Again, it depends on what you're looking for, whether you want to get the omega-3 in a fish oil or krill oil or cod liver oil or flaxseed oil. But those are great. They all have their advantages either way. So check them out. But again, make sure you're getting your omega-3s from a reputable source. And again, you need it either way. Omega-3s are essential, very, very essential thing to have. So make sure you're getting them each way. It's very good to promote health. All right. Next, I'm gonna talk a little bit about a clip again from this is from Ed Dowd. Again, Ed Dowd. Again, he's a former equity portfolio manager from BlackRock and a hedge fund guru. He's considered a hedge fund guru. You can take a look at his information. Just look up Ed Dowd. His last name is Dowd. He's a statistician, and he looked into all-cause mortality during COVID, during and after COVID, found some disturbing trends, but he found a trend in the UK disability database. So he got access to this information, and he found an unbelievable trend coming out of the pandemic. Again, what it is, he was on the Dr. Drew show, and what he found was an unbelievable spike in UK disability claims. Now, keep in mind, there's something that you have to take a look at in this, because this pension fund in the UK, these are disability claims that have been approved and paid out. So you have to understand, right, with disability claims, there's a whole review process that happens, and a good majority of disability claims are not paid out, even in the United States, right? They're not necessarily paid out. Probably 50 to 60% may not be paid out, because when they look at the claims, and when they look at the medical information in the claims, obviously they have to really do their diligence. And if they find that it's not actual disability, or there's a reason why they don't have to pay it out, they're not going to pay it out. So what he looked at is disability claims that were actually paid out in the UK coming out for or last year coming out of the pandemic. And the numbers are off the charts. Okay. And his question is number one, why? And why isn't anybody taking a look at this? And why would these numbers be so off the charts? I mean, they're literally way off the charts from what would be normal, even from before the pandemic. And he also looked at the United States data. But again, the United States data is different. Okay. It's based off of surveys. It's not as accurate as the UK data. And he's also trying to get access to the United States data. So stay tuned for that. But he also compares the two and talks about it. But he runs through the numbers. He runs through the trends here. And I want you to see this because, again, these are medical claims. These are medical claims that are being paid out to people. Why is this happening? So I want you to take a look at this. It's about a 4-minute clip. And those of you who are listening, you can listen to this also, but definitely take a look at this online. Why would this be happening after COVID? You know, I posed this question to you. Again, I have my thoughts and we'll talk about it afterwards, but take a look at the information because it is very, very disturbing. And I'm going to play this now.
Yeah, so the UK data is a treasure trove because it gives us causes. The disability data that we've talked about previously in the US is the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's not claims, it's a survey, but it's a survey that has given a strong signal that we were able to parse it out between employed, unemployed, and the general population. And that showed a strong signal that something was going on in the employed workforce in the US. But it doesn't, it's not a claim, it's a real-time survey. Mm-hmm. So that data, well, great. We were looking for data like this, and we found it in the UK Personal Independence Pension System. And this is, again, I want to reiterate, we're not doctors, and we need the help of the medical community and the regulators to explain what's going on, because it's alarming. So with that, let me start with the first slide, which is just the percentage increases over time of these different human body systems that the claims cleared and paid have gone up. And you can see, I'll point out hematological, which I didn't know what that was when my team and I first started doing this. I had to look it up. I'm not a doctor. That's up 522% in 2022. And I want to say this is versus trend. It's not versus 21 or 20. It's versus a trend that we analyze from 2016 to 2019. So it's a percent increase over trend. And the trends were stable. And then this exploded. And you can see, if you look at this chart, different body systems started off slowly in 2020, picked up speed in 21, and just exploded in 2022. So something is going on that is detrimental to the population of the UK. We can link it to the US because we've already linked the UK work time lost in the UK to the US. Same phenomenon there is going on. So it's not hard for us to surmise that if we had access to the US data, we'd see similar results. And I just want to point out, auditory issues up 121% in 2022 versus trend. Cardiovascular, 121. Oncology just started going up this year in 2022. Last year. And then genitourinary is up 142%. That has to do with the reproductive system. So again, these numbers are just crazy percentage-wise. And then we can convert these into, and here's where I'm going to talk like your 5-year-old, Dr. Kelly. We can convert these things to what's called Z-scores or standard deviations. And a standard deviation, all it is there's an average. There's an average of occurrences that occur around a mean, the average. And the further away you get from the mean, the more unlikely it is to occur. So, things that jump out at you are called standard deviation events. So 3 standard deviations happens 0.3% of the time from normal. That's what statistics is. It's an observation from normal. So 3 standard deviations is 0.3% of the time. In Wall Street, that's a big deal. A lot of these standard deviations from trend are just eye-popping. We look at them on a monthly basis and an annual basis. And on the annual numbers, hematology is up 61 standard deviations from trend. And just to kind of, give you an idea how kooky that is, that's like the probability of a black hole appearing near the Earth, and we get sucked in 2 years. I mean, it's just it's not something that is likely to occur mistakenly, and in this case, across all body systems. I'll just read some of the next slide.
Let's Ed, hang on before you just put a number on that. I'm imagining it's about 0.0, maybe 1%, somewhere in that zone, 0.0000001.
Yeah, it's way up.
Or is it 20 zeros?
It could be 20. I didn't do the math, but I'll tell you this. Look, in Wall Street, a 3 standard deviation is called a tail event. It doesn't happen that often. And that, sometimes we see extreme 6 standard deviation events, and that's kooky. 61 standard deviations is lights out, black swan event. Right. Something's gone off the rails. I mean, it's just, it's so many zeros and so unlikely to happen by accident that it has to be explained. And that's what we're calling on the medical community to explain this. That's it.
Yeah. So it's just incredible. And again, they're calling on the medical community to explain this. Okay. There has to be explanation for this, because, why would this be happening? And this is, again, the question I pose to you guys. Why do you think this is happening? Okay. I have my ideas, right? And think about this, because when he looks at the trends in these numbers, okay, and by the way, again, he sees the trend in the United States. He just doesn't have the exact numbers, but the trends are pretty much the same. 2020, you had a certain number. 2021, that number goes up pretty far. 2022, the number is off the charts. I mean, there was something that was, and the good thing is that it's broken down. He breaks it down into all different body systems: auditory, cardiovascular, immune. I mean, there was something that was up 500%. These are claims. This has never happened before, right? This is literally what he's saying is this is something that this is way off the charts as far as statistics. Now, you could say, well, what isn't it COVID? Could it be COVID? Well, okay, in 2022, what COVID are you dealing with? Omicron? You're dealing with the very light COVID at this point. So it's very different. If you thought about maybe, looking at the alpha and the delta waves of COVID, the first waves of COVID, you could say, okay, maybe, but we're COVID right now is pretty much very light cold at this point, right? With the Omicron strains and stuff like that. So I don't know if you can explain that. Could it be vaccine? It's possible. We don't know. But there is something clearly happening out there, because again, this is a black swan event. I mean, literally compares it to being swallowed up in a black hole. So it's scary stuff to think about, scary stuff to look at. But somebody has to investigate this. Authorities have to investigate this. In America, this is why we have a CDC. CDC is their job is to explain things. Like, their job is to look into this. And whether it's all-cause mortality, whether it's disability benefits, claims, whether it's time missed or whatever the case may be, no one is looking at it at all. And it boggles my mind. They don't want to even talk about it. I mean, all-cause mortality is up everywhere, and nobody's looking at this. So, I'm going to shine more of a light on this as we go, because again, people have to explain this. You're not going to hear this in mainstream mainstream media, nowhere. But I hope going forward that people really start to take a look at this in all the countries, whether it's United States, UK, wherever it is, because it's very, very scary stuff, And again, back to you guys, and I'm not trying to scare you guys, obviously, but again, at the end of the day, we don't know where it's from. Could it be from vaccine? Could it be from COVID? Could it be from something else? Obviously, whatever it's from, it's something to keep in the back of your mind. And this is, again, why you need to, number one, think critically, especially when your government officials tell you need, or you have to, or you're mandated to do something. Number two, take responsibility for your health. You have to do that. Okay. And, just do what you need to do to keep yourselves healthy, because you don't want to be a part of this trend, right? None of us do. So just something to keep in the back of your minds. And hopefully, you know, hopefully people take a look at this. Hopefully they really get to the bottom of this. And I don't think the governments want us to get to the bottom of this. I don't think they want to, because I think that once you open that door, you're going to find things that that are disturbing and that shake your faith and your trust in your government. That's just my 2 cents. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even a statistician. So I can't tell you what it is or not. Again, I have my thoughts on it, but we shall see as time goes forward. All right, guys. Hope you guys have a great week. Again, go to georgebatista.com. And by the way, that article is there. So make sure you read that article and check out Ed Dowd and his information online. And other than that, make sure you take care of yourselves, make sure you take care of each other, and make sure you control your health. Have a great day.